Oh, hello, 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 hello.
Hello.
What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Welcome to all of you to Transact. I am Ian El Haddock, and
I am Joelle Bayazori.
yes, we are here today. This is a production with the Trans Ally Collective, which consists of the Mahogany Project and the Normal Anomaly Initiative, along with Impulse Group Houston. We are in conjunction, in connection, in collaboration with the amazing Southern AIDS Coalition. Can we give Southern AIDS Coalition a round of applause? Absolutely. This event is a wonderful event, a part of Black Trans Empowerment Week. I am sitting here with my co-host. She is done in the name, she is beat in the name, and she is the 2020 Phoenix Award recipient.
Thank you, thank you.
So
thank
tell
you.
us a little bit more about you, Joelle.
I am the communications director for the Mahogany Project. I am a freelance writer. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an unapologetic bad bitch. Can I curse? I don't know. I won't say nothing too bad, but I'm just unapologetic, free spirit. I'm new to Houston, new to the South, but I love it. I'm happy to call the South and Houston my home. So yeah, I'm just excited to be here and to celebrate trans awareness and Black Trans Empowerment Week.
Absolutely. We just want to let you know, Transact is a movement. We will be here once a month talking with you as the Trans Ally Collective. And though tonight's show will be fun, it will be entertaining, we believe you're going to learn something. We have one of my favorite people, along with another one of my favorite people, being interviewed. So Mike Webb will be interviewed tonight. Can we give a round of applause for Mike Webb? Mike Webb will be interviewed by Vernice McFarland after this segment. You do not want to miss this interview because Mike Webb is a series of firsts.
Yes.
And so is Vernice, no shade. So just a little bit about some of the people that we're working with. Know that the Trans Ally Collective seeks to normalize conversations that expand on the intersections of the transgender spectrum and where allyship fits in it. So though we are sitting in this chair together, do know I am being led by the beautiful Joelle. And then finally, we are, like we said, we're partnering with Southern AIDS Coalition on this monthly show that we hope will push action items forward for the transgender movement. And then finally, the Mahogany Project has put on a phenomenal week of programming, virtual. And a lot of you girls, y'all probably don't know how hard it is to put together some virtual stuff, baby. Virtual stuff is harder.
It's another level of event planning and logistics. It's definitely challenging.
Yeah, so we want to congratulate the Mahogany Project on an amazing Black Trans Empowerment Week. And we also want to lift up the fact that tomorrow is Transgender Day of Remembrance. This is something that, from my conversations with Vernice, that sparked the conversation around Black Trans Empowerment Week. Because many times the only time we lift up our trans sisters, brothers, and non-binary folks and gender non-conforming folks is when they have passed away. So though that is important, being empowered is just as important. So thank you, Vernice, for your vision. Thank you, Southern AIDS Coalition, for the collaboration. And let's get into this doggone show.
Yes. So we got some hot topics that we're gonna
hold on.
about.
Do we have a little flyer or something to say that we're talking about hot topics now? Is hot topics gonna pop up on the screen?
Hot topics.
Okay, it's hot topics, baby. It's hot topics.
Hot topics. Let's talk about it. So the first hot topic, I don't know if it's hot, it's cold. The election 2020, the election that is still, it seems like it's still going on.
Yeah.
But regardless of all of the negatives and the dragging and all of this, and that person not leaving the office and admitting defeat, let's talk about the first, which is Kamala Harris being the first woman of color to be nominated for vice president. So,
I think it's a power. I don't know if she was the first one nominated
to win.
To win,
That's
for sure. for sure she was the first one to win. And I think it's powerful. I wanted to ask you, as a Black trans woman, what does having a woman of color, right, be the second in charge over the United States? What does that do for you as a Black trans woman?
It really, to me, when you see someone that looks like you in positions of power, first off, it normalizes Black women, women of color. It normalizes them in power. I think for many, I don't want to say all Black women and women of color, we have to work twice, 3 times as hard to get into the door, to get those positions of power. So to really see Kamala Harris ascend to that level, it really shows women of color and Black women that anything is possible, really, and that you can get there. And it's not just a man's world, it's not just a white man's world, but you can really ascertain and get that level of power.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's what I think is important, because like, even as a queer man, like, I'm sitting there constantly being able to see in my generation, in my lifetime, the possibility that I can be what I desire to be. This is a Black and Asian woman, right? And we don't look at the oppression of Asian women because it's a different type of oppression. But we know what it's like to be a Black woman by all the things, and Black women really save us. So though we're in a really uncomfortable time politically, I'm feeling very confident in Kamala.
I am too.
Kamala, excuse me. Excuse me, listen, I'm from the South, I'm from the country, I be messing up, but Kamala, yeah, absolutely.
I definitely feel confident, and I mean, she's more than qualified. I mean, how many times have we had men in positions of power that aren't qualified at all? They get the job because they're men. So to see a Black woman and a woman of color so distinguished, qualified to really get that level of power is amazing. I can't wait to see what she does.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Definitely. So speaking of the election, how do you feel about Trump not acknowledging defeat?
Child, pay her. I feel like a man on film, bitch. Hated it. I secretly really do hate it, because I think that this is what our democracy is built on. And I think as oppressed people around the country, we were forced to be in a space where we had to accept that this person was in charge. And now that this person has lost, he won't leave.
And he loses every day. Because it's like he loses again every day. He want to recount, and the recount tells him that you lost.
Let me tell you, every time I think about Trump, I think about bed bugs. It's like these little bitty people that just continue to procreate, go in the streets, fight people in DC, and won't go away. Bed bugs, go away. Don't nothing kill the bed bugs.
He like that roach that just, it won't go away. It run when you try to swat it. It's not leaving. He is. And I'm like, so Melania already had the moving van at the White House. Like, I don't understand. Like, it's time to go. She's ready to go. Everybody else is ready to go, but you.
Yeah. I'm with you. Go, baby. Go.
So speaking of, I guess, Trump and not accepting things, one thing that he also hasn't accepted is the seriousness of COVID and Corona and how it's affected not just this country, but the world. And I definitely feel like it's impacted our communities and communities of color even harder. How do you feel like COVID has impacted marginalized communities, whether it's queer communities, Black communities?
Yeah, I think it's so weird. So I think for queer communities in particular, we've been in crisis since I've been alive, right? One of the first things that my family said when I came out was that you was gonna get AIDS. And I know that's an improper conversation or improper term right now, but that was the first conversation that was had when I was coming out about who I was, like, you're gonna get AIDS. And not that HIV is something that we should stigmatize. Actually, we should work against stigmatizing HIV. And this is a part of the work that we do here. But I also want to just lift up the fact that we've been in crisis, right, since the beginning of time. And so COVID for a lot of us it's just oppression on top of oppression. I think about like how we are feeling isolated, and how as soon as the clubs open, like people are being cute, like how dare you go to the club, how dare you be in spaces. And we do want to push that you should be safe. We do want to push that you should do all you can to protect yourself from COVID and to protect yourself from anything that can harm you, right? But the reality is sometimes it's just so heavy, and I call the club our church. The only church we know is the club, right? The only church, the only family some of us know, like me, the only family I know is my community. And so it is hard to be away from my community while dealing with the effects of finances, while dealing with the effects of unemployment, while dealing with the effects of having to pay bills, right? It's really difficult. So I think it's really, really a space where we need to look more into and really look into our hearts. I understand the public health crisis that we're in, but understanding that we have been through crisis, and though we haven't ended the epidemic of HIV, we got all the tools, but we haven't ended the epidemic of HIV. We still know what it's like to live through crisis.
I completely agree. I just think that COVID only magnified just how much the systems of oppression work in this country, because you see they're telling everyone to social distance, to stay at home, but people that are I'm forgetting the workers, what they're called, the essential workers are still having to go to work. And who are the essential workers? Black and brown people. They're people of color. They're women of color. So I feel like what it does is it's only magnifying the problems in this country that have existed since the beginning of time. It's making it so that, even something whereas sex workers who, sex work is the only form of employment that they can get, which for trans women is the only employment that many of them can get, it's making it that much harder for them to do that safely. So I definitely feel like COVID has impacted the community tremendously.
Yeah, I agree. I wish we could talk more about this part, but I know we're on a little time crunch. But yeah, because I could go in on that.
And speaking of COVID and trans women, so I don't know if everyone knows, but trans women, the average median income for trans women is $10,000, and which is extremely, extremely, extremely low. And COVID has impacted employment for trans women when employment was already an epidemic. How do you feel like COVID has impacted trans women when it comes to employment and the already low income that they receive?
I think that's a question that should go right back to you, right? Because I think that we so many times think about it in this construct of I. The truth of the matter is I can do all the work I want to, but you are lived experience, right? So I'm asking a question to you.
I know for me personally, already, just trying to find gainful employment as a Black trans woman of color, it's hard. It's definitely difficult. It's challenging. You're having to work 3 times as hard just to get into the door, and it doesn't matter what your qualifications are. Once it's almost like they only look at your identity. And now with COVID and the high rates of unemployment, it makes just trying to find a job that much harder, or trying to leave a job that you want to leave that much harder. Just the normal kind of movement of employment. Trans women already weren't afforded that, but now it just makes it that much harder. And it seems like COVID is the disease, unfortunately, that's never leaving. So it's really, really making it that much more challenging for trans women, and specifically Black women of trans experience, to really, really get their footing when it comes to employment.
Yeah. I think it was something that came out on NBC News. I can't remember the statistic, but it was like, what did you read the statistic on NBC News?
So the statistic said that up to 25, it was about hate crimes or employment?
Hate crimes.
So it said that, I'll read it verbatim.
Okay.
Anti-transgender hate crimes are up 20%, but only 15% are reported.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that hate crime situation, because when we talk about unemployment, there's a lot of people sitting at home, right? It's a lot of people sitting at home. It's a lot of people sitting at home upset. It's a lot of people sitting at home even more oppressed, and really poverty and unemployment and things like that are the reason we have a lot of the crimes outside of the fact that stigma, right? And not accepting people being quote unquote different than you is a part of it. So that hate crime situation brought that up for me. So for me, how are you feeling, right, when you hear the hate crimes are up in the middle of pandemic, in the middle of like, I think it was like 7 in Pride Month, 7 Black trans people were hurt in Pride Month, murdered in Pride Month. So how are you feeling about that? Like, while we're dealing with this crisis, going back to my first thought that we're always in crisis, how are you feeling about that?
It definitely, because I try to live my life as free as possible, but it definitely gives me a little pause to know that, wow, hate crimes are up. The murders of Black women of trans experience are up. The murders of women who look like me and identify me are up. So it definitely gives me pause, especially living in Texas, which is known as the epicenter for this national epidemic that is the murder of Black trans women. It's difficult. It's hard. It's definitely challenging. I know it makes me almost reevaluate the moves that I make, which is something that's against my nature. I try to move as free as possible, but knowing that it's up and the murder rates are only rising, it's challenging. It's hard.
I think that's a powerful place to point out the fact that at the end of this episode, we have one of my friends, one of my colleagues, Titan Capri, coming to give more information in the South around, we're calling it our community corner. We're going to give more information about resources, things that you can do. But I also want you to go to transallycollective.com, okay? And I want you to sign up for our mailing list such that in the new year, you can begin getting information on how to be a better ally to trans people, specifically Black trans people, such that we can end this epidemic specifically here in the South, even more specifically in Texas. Mm-hmm. So I think our next segment, as we get prepared for this amazing interview with Mike Webb, interviewed by Vernice McFarland, I want us to tribute to a person that did so much in her life, so much for Black trans people, and I would argue so much for the LGBTQIA plus community as a whole, Monica Roberts. So enjoy this.
Needed to be done, she was going to do it, and if something needed to be said, she was going to say it.
Legacy is a gift. It is the gift of a life well lived.
Monica was the type of mentor that always said things, or she was the type of person that was always, not you go do it, let's go do it.
She had a way of weaving words together that gave an entire community humanity.
She led the charge, near and far. She made change for her trans sisters in ways you could not imagine, in ways that had not been. From laws, rights, and legislature to regulations, you can feel her from the north to the south, in the community, in and out. She stood strong and stood for us all. Her desire for trans women to strive speak volumes of her drive. She is, she is, she is. Her advocacy, human rights, our trans rights, protect Black trans women. She is, she is, she is here.
Monica is a constant reminder of when you choose perseverance, when you choose resilience, when you choose to be unwavering in your fight for equality, things will change.
Trans-oriented blogs addressing the issues germane to the trans community existed, but the common thread was that none of those early trans blogs were discussing issues of importance to trans people of color.
What is the legacy that you're leaving behind?
And I love that woman.
What she provided to the community is priceless. Monica was priceless, and she will forever be missed.
My name is Vernice McFarland, and I will be your host for the evening, and I will be interviewing our special guest, Michael Webb.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Amazing. And that was a beautiful tribute to Monica.
Well, you know, we're doing what we can just to serve the community and pay homage. You know, Monica deserves so much more while she was here. And in her absence, she deserved us to stand up in her place and still give her things. They say when a grill dies, a library is burned down, right? And so we still want to preserve that knowledge and show everyone what she provided to the community. So I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Well, thank you.
So could you introduce yourself to us? Could you give us your name, where you're located, and your pronouns?
I'm Mike Webb. I'm located in Houston, Texas. My pronouns are they, them, their. And just in summary, I'm an activist that prioritizes the Black queer community and empowering the Black queer community.
Sickening. And my name is Vernice McFarland. My pronouns are Vernice, they, them, she, her, never theirs, always mine. Okay, just to be clear on that. So thank you once again for joining us. I am really excited to have you. I haven't seen you in a while, so I'm glad to be with you virtually. So my first question for the evening is, out of all the many identities that you have, which one do you hold close and dear to you?
That's a really tough one. I would have to say that throughout the spectrum of my life, I've been closest to each of them differently. As a young person, I was very much attached to being queer. Like I grew up in a traditional Black family in a highly religious home by a single mother. However, my queerness wasn't the most accepted part of my identity in that household. And so I think I was most identify more strongly with that part of myself. However, I find myself as I navigate through life that depending on what trauma our communities are experiencing, that tends to be the identity that I connect with the most. In summary, I would absolutely say that I'm Black first, and everything else is sort of like a sub identity to that. That being said, as we talk about the intersections of identities, for instance, in the Black community, it's not uncommon to experience certain levels of homophobia or transphobia. And so it's hard not to sort of combine identities at times, right? Like, how can I separate being Black, being queer, being HIV positive, and being trans?
Right. There's a lot that goes into that people aren't aware of. So as a non-binary person, how has your experience encompassed your Blackness? How has that experience been navigating life as a Black person who is non-binary?
Yeah, no, it takes a certain level of, I would say, audacity, first of all, because one of the first feedback, that's a lot. The first feedback I received was from a Black lesbian, Fran Watson. Most of us know her by name. And she immediately referred to me by my proper pronouns, embraced my identity, and that helped sort of set the tone for how I expect other people to treat me afterwards. I will say, though, that I received a lot of why add on, right? Like, why add on to the oppression that we already experienced, specifically from Black folks, even from other Black queer people, because they just like, this is just too much, this is just too far. Why can't you just be in a box that we understand? And it takes a lot of willingness to be alone at first, and to frustratingly educate folks. But at the end of the day, it's about being authentic with yourself and loving yourself. And if you love yourself to the degree that you're empowered, it's a lot easier to have conversations with people about it.
Okay, so you talked about loving yourself, and I know sometimes for trans individuals, it's hard to find that self-love, because you get so much hatred from so many other places and spaces, but then you encompass that with living with HIV, and so how are you able to navigate that as a Black person living with HIV who is non-binary, living in the South, in the Bible Belt? What is that climate like for you?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm not gonna like sugarcoat anything and say that I've always had like this high self-esteem and was this encouraged. It definitely took a village of people around me. For example, when I first found out I was living with HIV in 2010 now. Oh God, it's been 10 years. When I first found out I was living with HIV, like immediately I had friends and family in DC, like family of choice in DC, who were like immediately surrounded me. Again, just like I was talking about when I came out about being non-binary, and really set the tone for how you should treat yourself and how other people should treat you. So I can't take all the credit for feeling this, I guess, confident and having this degree of self-love, because it's in large part because of the village and the people who support me and love me, and my chosen family that has said, okay, well, if you're non-binary, be the baddest non-binary person in the world, right? You know what I mean? Like, if you're living with HIV, let's make sure you're going to all your appointments. Let's make sure that you're taking your meds. My friends are harder on me on going to my appointments than I am. So it definitely takes a village to empower each other. And that's one of the reasons why I'm very big on the need for us as a community to empower each other, because you really never know sort of the stigmas that people have to overcome just to live the daily life, right? And at the end of the day, I think it's important for us to contribute to your empowerment and not contribute to things that tear each other apart.
So you have been living with HIV for 10 years. And so when you found out you were diagnosed with HIV, you were in DC, correct?
Yes.
So finding out the information in DC, shifting from, because DC is a totally different climate, that you chocolate city, then you come back to the Bayou City. So what is that shift like? What does that look like?
Absolutely. When I found out I was living with HIV, it was, and I've talked about this before, I believe, it was more of a wake-up call. I was like, I need to get serious about my life. I've always wanted to help my community and make a difference. And so it really just that I shifted gears, and I was like, where can I have the most impact? My roots were in Houston. My family's in Houston. And so I came back to Houston. At the time I was working at the mayor's office. And I have to say that as soon as I landed here, it was all about, service and the work. And I think that was the shift in gears for me. Because even though DC is a very professional culture, that wasn't the experience I prioritized in DC. And I would have to say by moving back to Houston, I definitely prioritize, just trying my best to have an impact in this world.
Okay, so most people don't know this about Mike Webb, but Mike Webb has a legacies of first. You were the first Black non-binary person to lead the LGBT political caucus.
Yes.
You were the first non-binary Houston Grand Marshal, which is the 4th largest pride in the United States. Okay, Let's get that together. And then, you were recently, the Mahogany Project named you the Person of the Year, which was the first time that we've given out that award. So what is it like for Mike Webb to be so young and to carry these multitude of identities, right? And to have a legacy of first. What is that like?
So I try not to think about sort of accolades or being the first. Like that doesn't cross my mind initially, I have to admit. It's always just about, having the audacity. Like, for example, and Ian knows this very well, when I was working at Legacy Community Health, our positivity rate was so freaking high. Like so many of our community members were tested HIV positive, and I felt like our policymakers and our elected officials and politicians weren't really prioritizing this pandemic within our community. And so I just had the audacity to initially yell at this gay organization that's supposed to be representing us. And I found from that experience that it takes, doing the work and not just preaching about the work, right? In order to actually make an impact and make a difference. And so I just started doing the work and doing political organizing. I just happened to eventually, after 4 years, become president of that organization. And, they've endorsed more Black and brown candidates and elected officials that helped me get elected than ever before in history. And it's because, at the end of the day, you just focus on, what is your intention and what is your goals? What are you trying to do for the community? And if accolades and if those accomplishments happens to take place, that's amazing. But that's not, to be honest, that's not initially my first thought when I'm trying to work on a project or organize sort of an initiative that helps the community.
Listen, you better receive these flowers, okay?
I'm receiving. I'm very good.
We let far too many people go without giving them to them, without letting them see them or smell them. So you better enjoy it.
I do. I think we're in a state of our community where we're recognizing that we do need to celebrate each other and highlight each other's gifts. And that's what I'm very appreciative of.
So, being a non-binary person working for Legacy Community Health, working in policy, working in public health, what do you think we can do to expand health to non-binary, gender non-conforming people, trans folk who live outside of the binary?
Absolutely. So I talk about this a lot, specifically at Legacy, but it needs to be across the board in public health. We need to eliminate as much as possible what I call administrative violence. And that's essentially where, for example, if you happen to go to the front desk to set an appointment and you already misgendered, or you have to publicly explain sort of the sensitive nature of your health because you are trans or non-binary, or even as simple as your paper forms. Most of my medical documentation, I have to manually edit myself because it's not inclusive of non-binary identity. And it's important for my healthcare providers to know, right? This is where I am on the gender spectrum. And also, for all you know, as a non-binary person, I might need certain types of adjustments, right? Because non-binary people are not monoliths. And so it takes sort of you having to be very intentional at the present moment about sort of you being your own doctor, right? You have to tell essentially your doctor a lot of times what you need and what you need to be prioritized for your health. And so it's not of education all around, but I find myself teaching my doctors more than teaching me.
Yeah, so I was talking to one of our good friends not too long ago, Jayla Sylvester, and we were on a panel together, and we came to the conclusion that as trans people, you have to be your own advocate and your own expert, right?
Yes.
And sometimes it's so unfortunate that you have to go into a doctor's office and you can't allow this person who went to school for all of these years, paid all this money to get the degree. You can't go in here and put your safety and your health in their hands because they're not experts on your health.
Nope. And this is not just like, primary health care. This is also mental health care as well, right? And you have to educate your mental health providers as well. And so it's across the board. At the end of the day, though, it's about you not being, you having the courage to do it. I know it takes a lot of courage. Sometimes it's very scary. Sometimes there's people around. And sometimes we don't even have like the exact words to explain things, right? Like not all of us have access to sort of conferences that like further break down how to talk to your medical provider. That being said, I think even if it's as simple as asking, pointed questions around your health would be helpful.
Right. So statistics have shown that 44% of Black trans women nationally are living with HIV, right? What can AIDS service organizations do to support those individuals who are living with HIV while also ensuring that trans folk who are not living with HIV do not contract HIV? What can we do to support them?
One of the first things, and this is what's so impressive about the Mahogany Project, because they're spot on with the goals that they're trying to achieve, is accurate data collection. How can we even understand exactly where can we prioritize resources as it relates to HIV prevention and HIV empowerment as it relates to trans communities if we don't even know exactly what the numbers are, right? And so many years, and I have to check to see if they've changed it. The city of Houston specifically, I would imagine this is like public health departments across the state, weren't even collecting like people who identify as trans. Everyone was listed by the sex they were named at birth, and so male or female. And so for the longest time, all of our HIV data around trans communities, especially in Houston, was speculative. It was estimations. And I think we need to have very culturally competent data collection. We need to have very culturally competent targeting, or we shouldn't say targeting anymore, we should say prioritizing, right, of resources specifically for trans communities of color that includes non-binary communities. We essentially need to have community level interventions that are led by trans people. And that's what we're not seeing, right? I love that like everyone is preaching this message about trans inclusivity, and that Black trans lives matter, but how can we put those values in practice is something that I always try to challenge folks with, right? If Black trans folks matter, then trans folks need to be in the hiring and decision-making rooms in the health departments, right? Because I guarantee you that if trans folks were leading these initiatives, were managers in executive level positions that prioritize resources, we wouldn't see the disparity in service that we see today.
Most definitely. And as my colleagues talked about earlier, we have noticed increased violence of trans people during Pride season, right? What can Pride organizations across the nation do to be more inclusive and protective of the trans community? If it had not been for these people, we wouldn't have these Pride celebrations that go on weeks and weekends at a time. What could we do to be more inclusive of those people?
So when I was, when I was Pride Houston's first non-binary Grand Marshal, part of being Grand Marshal is you have to attend, specific events leading up to Pride. And I would imagine, because no one who has trans experience is part of the planning process of the program, that they had us, like, for example, we were at the domino game one night and they paraded, we were positioned in the field during halftime. And basically they announced exactly what categories we were marshals in. And then afterwards they were like, okay, thank you for coming. And then expected us to get home on our own, which was fine. But what we realized was, for example, we had the honorary grand marshals who, were trans women. And no one thought about hey, we just announced that these people are trans, right? We understand trans violence. For this entire stadium filled with thousands of people, and no one's gonna at least have security walk them home. You know what I mean? Walk them to the car to make sure they get home safely. So I think it takes, and first of all, it means that we need to be inclusive of trans people in our like planning processes, because you can't expect cisgender people to automatically like think of like all ways to protect trans people, but trans people have lived an experience where we know where we're in danger, right? We know where we're at highest risk. And so it oftentimes involves consulting people who have trans experiences and trans lives to better serve us and better honor us and better celebrate us. So I think that's where it starts. It's not, I wouldn't dare say that it's intentional, but it's definitely like an oversight.
No, but I definitely understand what you're saying. For me and my mom, Alanis Narcisse, we have many discussions about how people ask her to do different panel discussions, show up to different news events and things like that. And those people aren't aware of the safety precautions that she has to go through when she's alone, or away home, or someone who may have watched the show and then see her in the grocery store and follow her out to her car, right? Or she's waiting to go into an event and people are bothering her in the parking lot, which I have been with her and have seen that happen, right? And so I think we really have to acknowledge that that there is a level of safety that we do not provide to the trans community or to our trans brothers, sisters, siblings, and family members when they are in spaces or leaving spaces.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So Houston, so this is our last question. We have to get out of here very, very soon. But Houston has the second largest trans population, only to California.
Wow.
What do you want people to know about our community?
It's so freaking diverse and empowered. I look at our trans community in Houston as the leaders of the trans movement across the nation and arguably across the world. And Monica Roberts is an amazing example of that. It's sort of like, I look at Houston in general as the epicenter of social movements in modern times. We have every ingredient to progress our communities. And it's right here in Houston, it's right here in the South. And what I love about the trans communities in Houston is that we're reaching a level where we're fed up, right? We're tired of being second-class residents in this country and in this state. And we're not just fed up in the sense of, and this is important, going into the streets and marching, but we're also fed up in a sense where we're demanding real results and real actions, and to be part of the solutions to these problems, and not just, you know, to be talked at to about these problems. And so that's what's empowering, that's what's impressive about our trans communities in Houston. You should come to Houston and celebrate with us after the pandemic, when it's safe. Like when it's safe. I'm not trying to encourage
after the pandemic. But thank you so much for joining us. I love you so much. I miss you. And once again, I want to thank you and honor you once again as the Mahogany Project persons of the year. This is your award that we have.
Oh my God.
Mahogany Project. So we're just waiting to see you to provide it to you. So thank you again so much for joining us.
Amazing.
Yeah. And you have a great night. I'll see you.
Years old. The majority of murders happen in Central and South America, totaling 287. Like last year, the most deaths in a single country happened in Brazil, totaling 43% of global deaths, which equals to roughly around 152 people. The next country with the highest reported cases of anti-transgender violence leading to death is Mexico, with 57. While the Human Rights Campaign, who compiled a separate list for the U.S., have totaled 34 reported deaths within the United States of victims of anti-transgender violence. So with this high number, this only scratches the surface of what the actual victims of anti-transgender violence are. Due to stigma, discriminations, and lack of knowledge of reporting those who have been victims of anti-transgender violence, many of these cases do not get reported and do not make it onto the list of that I just talked about. Fortunately, the Human Rights Campaign, HRC, which is the educational arm of the nation's largest lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer LGBTQ civil rights organization, is intended to serve as a primer and a starting point for reporters committed to telling the stories of transgender people accurately and humanely, from appropriate word usage to content that reflects the reality of the lived experience of transgender and gender nonconforming people. You can check out more information for accurately reporting transgender news, whether that's anti-transgender violence, anti-transgender victories, anti-transgender news, transgender news, whatever, by going to HRC at hrc.org. Again, that's hrc.org. In addition, if you have any questions or need any insight about properly servicing transgender and gender nonconforming people or reporting them, advocating them, or doing any work, please feel free to reach out to me, Justine, at SouthernAIDSCoalition.org. Thank you.
It's the Community Corner. Hey everyone, I am Titan Capri and I'm here with your Community Corner. So today we're going to talk about Abundant Prosperity Inc.'s transparency program for Black and Latinx transgender women has launched and is offering many services such as PrEP, care and treatment, hormone replacement therapy, rental and utility assistance, social support groups, and more. Find out more at www.abundantprosperity.org. Check it out, check it out. We are also proud to bring to you the Trans Ally Collective. We're not waiting for another hashtag. The Transgender Ally Collaborative was started out of the need for having Black and or the overall LGBTQIA+ community take more substantial steps in protection, uplifting, success of their transgender families' lives. Join our mailing list for updates starting in January at transallycollective.org. I know it sounds like I'm just reading straight off the paper, but hey. So right, safety is something that all transgender, gender nonconforming, and non-binary folks face today. To decrease anti-trans violence amongst transgender folks of color, the Mahogany Project has created Uprising. Uprising is a program that gives self-defense classes, items, and resources for the protection of our transgender siblings. Find out more at themahoganyproject.org. And that's your community corner.
That's your community
That's
corner.
your community corner, yeah.
So we definitely want to thank you all for joining our first Trans Act.
Yeah.
So, Vernus, any last thoughts?
Just stay tuned. We have so much more coming from the Mahogany Project, the Trans Ally Collective, Trans Act, the Normal Anomaly. Just stay tuned. Houston is budding with a bunch of community leaders who are out here doing the work, and it takes you getting engaged to make it happen.
Joelle, what's your last thoughts?
I'm just happy and excited to be a part of a collective, just with some amazing allies, and just really a part of a community that is really on the ground doing the work.
Absolutely. Titan, last thoughts.
Y'all see my shirt? Y'all see my shirt?
Oh, period.
Period. That's it. That's it.
And I finally want to leave you all with this. Know that we talk a lot about Black trans people. In general, we had a conversation that really exposed something that we don't know a lot about as allies, and that's gender nonconforming and non-binary people and how they fit into the transgender spectrum. But this is what I want to leave you all with, and I say this all the time. Allyship in whatever form no matter if you're fighting for the end of the epidemic of HIV, no matter if you're fighting for the equality of all people, or if you're fighting for Black trans women and Black trans people in general, allyship requires sacrifice. Make the sacrifice for a better world. Make the sacrifice for a better you. Make the sacrifice. Have a great night, and thank you for joining in.
Yeah.